This is the Concerned Dads podcast. I'm your host, Katie M. Kane, and with me is my co host, Will Terps.
Yo, yo.
Okay, so tonight's episode is based around cultivation in the cannabis industry. We have two different guests. The first one is going to be Noah Bentley from Salvation Farms and Joshua Steensland from Steensland Consulting. Both guys have a lot of input and insight as far as the industry goes from both of their points of view. So we're really excited to have them on the show. Hopefully, we have some live listeners who want to call in and ask some questions. Did you do anything cool this week, Will?
Yeah, I actually had a home brewing class today that I attended, which is pretty cool. Try my hand at that, brew some beers. But yeah, it was very informative and makes me realize that some needs equipment, probably to fail a bunch, but hey, that's how you get started with most things. So
Yeah, man, R&D, bro, R&D all the way.
exactly, yeah. But yeah, that's what I did pretty much. Just hung out with the family otherwise. But yeah, that was definitely the highlight of my weekend. That home brewing class was cool.
Dope, dope.
Yeah.
I feel like intros are kind of out of the way. Do you feel the same, Will? Would you like to have Noah come on right now? We're only a few minutes in, but
Yeah.
Noah's live on
Yep.
the video feed, so we might as
Noah's
well have
ready
him
to
come
go.
on and
So
talk. I feel
let's
like
get him.
his mind is right, our mind is right. We might as well get to the talking part.
Exactly.
Okay. Yo,
Yo,
what's
yo,
up,
what's up?
Noah? So we've been on the stream for a second before we went live, just chopping it up and practicing a little bit. We're really excited to have Noah on the show, ladies and
I'm
Definitely.
excited
gentlemen.
to be here. It's my first time doing anything like this.
Dope, man, to have you on. It's Noah Bentley from Salvation Farms. That's all I really want to say. My first, please state your name, location, company, and whether rec or medical.
So I'm a medical farmer out of the state of Oregon. I participate in the seed to sale transfer system that has partnered with the OLC program. Full season light dep and indoor farming, cultivation, all for medical patients. They get their yearly supply. And pretty much what we do, everything really clean. Everything's handcrafted. We keep a really fine eye on the process to make sure pretty much the best quality that we can produce.
Nice. So both indoor and outdoor cultivation. That's super dope. Hopefully, if you have any slots available, a couple of patients can be down, stay up on it, man. Because I know the medicine is way better in Oregon than where I'm at.
Yeah.
How long have you been in cultivation?
7 years. I wasn't running my own stuff until about like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
It's dope that you're still sticking with it. What sort of methods are you practicing as far as indoor, outdoor? Is there like a nutrient line? Are you doing soil indoors? Are you doing hydro?
We have worm beds. We're going to be recycling soil full season. We have beds that we rotate. We have pots that we rotate, and gotten to what we think is adequate level to put into back into an indoor facility, which is around like 6 to 8 months. It kind of takes like a really cold and a really hot atmosphere from the environment to kind of get the soil right. But yeah, we've recycled soil for the last 4 years, and we found that that's like really one of the best methods because there's so much left over once the roots and like whatever is left in the soil finally decays and nature has at it. There's nothing that can quite compare to it. And so we do a mixed method on some of our controlled environments, like our indoor settings. We're going to be doing a hybrid mix, but we're still going to be using worm castings that we harvested from our beds, which that is a very dirty process. And then we're going to be using reused soil that mixed and tilled and worked with for at least half a year. We don't put it in, our rooms without, doing our due diligence. We do inoculate our soil with We try to stay like, ahead of the curve, always doing our research. I do have some help that really, they allow me to kind of test some, new things that I want to do. And, I've been really diligent on my methods and practices, trying to, stay clean and sanitary, just like some of the ground floor things that, any grower would really practice. I really like outdoor. That would, if there's a method that really, holds close to my heart, I feel like the sun and, nature allows the plant to really show its true identity. And so, yeah, I do like indoor cannabis. It is in a way, a bit more potent, a whole different style of cannabis. But yeah, I have I've taken a liking to pretty much the whole aspect of cultivating. I kind
Yeah,
of didn't want to just focus on one style, so I,
yeah,
did my research and ventured out.
yeah. Because I was always an outdoor guy. I didn't have the space to run any lights indoor, so like that was my game, and it is a little bit different. My selling point to people would just be that there's more cannabinoids present when it's under the sun. Like if you run the same genetics indoor as outdoor, there will be more cannabinoids present on the lab test.
I would
And
agree. Several years ago, I was getting batches tested with through chem history, which in the Oregon, well, maybe I'll just inform, in the Oregon, they're pretty known for being honest and giving, pretty solid results. And I wasn't looking for numbers. Everything that I produced outside was coming back kind of more flavorful. Definitely a whole different high. You can see the differences,
no doubt, no doubt.
Totally.
in my journey of kind of figuring out the plant. I had the opportunity to work at several hydro stores in the local area, and that opens up like a whole new gateway of knowledge, because you're seeing so many different minds and different farmers coming through, and you just
Yeah.
you do research, you talk to the reps. I've been to dozens of trade shows, and one thing I do say is that any form of compost tea, or probably going to be my favorite feeding style. You get the most crystal development I've seen, just the healthiest plants, and that is an organic method.
Yeah. Shooting powder.
Yeah,
Shit
nasty,
goes, man.
nasty.
Shit goes, but the shit goes.
If we're gonna consider this medicine like it is, it's got to be grown, um, like medicine. It can't be anything else um, in the herb, or that can compromise patient's health. So if a patient that needs to smoke or vaporize, but has like asthma or some sort of slightly compromised like lung condition, smoking something with mold, even the slightest amount, can really be detrimental to your health. So, it just needs all around the board. It needs to, we really need to treat it like medicine. That's why Oregon is definitely taking the leap with like, the really stringent pesticide testing, and that the mold testing could definitely be a lot more stringent.
Medical mold test, and the rec
Yeah.
growers do not, correct? In
Right.
order to get on
Well,
the shelf?
I think it's the same. I think or
I don't
mainly like the mold count, since it's all going through the rec system. I could be
I
wrong,
I
but
don't think
I
I don't
think
think
that
mold is required. It's like salmonella and E. coli and
no,
fungus
I agree. I think you can
and
have in
pesticides.
Oregon they set it up so you can have quite a bit of colony forming units, as they say, the CFU,
Yep.
and still get away with a shelfable product. If we're not testing it in that capacity, there's a way to fully prove that it's beneficial medicine in my eyes.
No doubt.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so
fully agree.
that leads me to my next question, Noah, is how have regulations changed since you started cultivating? Like I kind of touched on that a little bit, but plant limits, metric, all that, dude. Like
So
um
it for
you do have to pass the mold test, correct, in order to get on the shelf?
yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Rec guys don't. They don't, man. I remember that being a big thing because everybody took pride in the medical community for passing that mold test. It's like we're in a humid environment through the fucking winter, no matter what. And if you can control your environment in order to pass that test, then you got game, and I will shop with you. You know?
One thing that, you know, I practiced since day one is like kind of like a Spartan mentality, but you see any problem, you treat it like a cancer. And so yeah, to a grower, mold is like, the bane. But when you have, 5,000 plants, huge investments, and you're running like 100 light, 400 light, 1,000 light farm, mold isn't going to stop you.
Yeah.
It's
Gotta.
just that simple.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that was just something that when I saw rec turnover, there was like pretty much the OLCC and all the regulatory factions, they had to like compromise with the farmers. They had to like pick, one or the other, can we spray this or that? And so pretty much I believe that, trying your best to have the cleanest environment. I try not to spray. I use predatory bugs to the best of my knowledge, and I try to make my soils so strong and rich and my plants so healthy that, they fend off, the mold on their own. Feeding your plants really healthy diets, and it's like, how are you going to be affected by a mold at that point? And that's just kind of the practice that I followed. But I'm not going to say that I've never seen mold, because living in Oregon and growing outdoors, bud rot is one of my biggest fears. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm totally familiar with all of that. Yeah, I keep peroxide on deck always. Any
Yeah,
type of
bro.
way to clean all of my walls, anything like that. You just
It's
got to keep it clean. And
it's
dehumidifiers, I have a row of dehumidifiers because that's one of my best tools.
It's
But
good. It's good to hear that you're doing light depth too, because no matter what, and I've been outside in Oregon 2011 through 2017. No matter what, halfway through September, it starts
It's gonna
fucking
rain.
raining and it's
yep,
getting cold.
Is
And
everyone always?
it's gonna
I
get
always
moldy,
thought it
bro.
was
No
funny.
matter what, halfway through
I
Well,
it
count the
happens every
days. That's what I
single
do.
year, bro.
yeah, I thought it was funny because people told me, at least naive people told me at first that Oregon, or like, not, I mean, Oregon is great for outdoor, but Portland was good for outdoor specifically too. They were like, oh yeah, it grows great. It finishes out. It's all sunny. It's all sun over the summer. No, I learned that that was not the case quickly. I mean, I didn't grow for a few years after that, but I tried just a little 4 plant grow at my house. I think it was 2 summers ago, and man, I mean, I my plants weren't getting too much sun, but we had a little pocket of like probably 6 hours of sunlight that I'd move them in and out of, just try to get them the most exposure possible. And as soon as that rain hit mid-September, like you're saying, it was game over. We tried to build a little structure over them, but it's like, if if you don't expect that, then you're gonna be unprepared, and that's what what I was, and I lost all 4 plants. So
Yeah, so anybody listening, the light dep is light deprivation. It's when you start covering the plants to make them go into flower before the sunlight will. So you put
Yeah,
them on a
controlling the
12-12
photo
cycle.
period, usually
Yeah,
with tarps and motors and all
yep,
sorts of, yeah, all sorts of
yeah,
crazy stuff. But
yeah,
back onto the transition question, really, OHA and the OLCC, the rules have really been changing. This could be wrong, but I always get a letter. It always seems like something is brought to my attention that they're going to change something. But they do a good job of communicating. I'm not saying that they don't. I keep every piece of paper that they send me just in case. Cover my ass.
yeah,
Um,
man. Something to refer back to. Like, well, I got a letter that said this, and
exactly.
that's
Oh
what I'm
yeah, you
going
got to
off
keep that, especially
of.
when it's still federally illegal. Oregon's, I feel safe doing what I do. You never know what could happen anytime, but being America, the dollar, I think, is, kind of pushing that aside. And like, I just came back from a vacation, and it literally everybody was talking about cannabis, and it was in a recently new rec legal state. And so it was the new hot thing. And where I was, a lot of tourists that aren't from that area, they're coming to try cannabis to at least get, a feel for it. OHA, they're doing a super good job. They're training a bunch of people. The OLCC's training a bunch of people. Neither of them are slouching on any of this. If you're growing weed and they know you're growing weed, they really want to come see what you got going on. And that was just like a really big wake up call for me. But I kind of expected it, running such a large, operation, putting all those patients at my space and facilities. I knew that, I was going to have to play ball or, stop, because, they want to track everything, how much you manicure off your plants. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, they're doing a pretty good job on that. It was, a learning curve, took a while, but they offer training. There's a lot of, stuff out there. A lot of people, a lot of my friends are growers, and they all have rec farms, or, they've dabbled with the systems. And so, yeah, I've gotten help everywhere. They've helped me. They've always answered the phones. They've been super, cooperative with everything. They understand that it's going to take time for everything to, be awesome. I'm actually for it. At first, I was a little shaky to it, but after, really getting good focus on my, on my project and my, what I call like my baby, it, keeps you on top of everything. And so, all right, if I'm going to do this, then this is just another thing I have to do to live the dream. They have you jump through every hoop I feel like a rec farm would jump through. And I don't receive all the benefits a rec farm does by, marketing and branding and going and, pushing their product anywhere. I'm, secluded to a small corner.
Rec growers have canopy space, and you have a limit of plants. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They did offer a grandfather program, where, medical farmers could, get a micro canopy or, any of the licenses. But I was in that category, but I just at the time didn't feel like I was, ready to go do and pursue that. I live in an area where I'm not in the city limits. They keep your plant limits down. So you're really trying to grow super big, healthy plants, just so that you can, pull to plant, so that you can opt. It's just a little bit different style growing, but it's still as beneficial. I can still pull off canopies similar to a lot of the micro tiers. When I had my inspections, the OLCC was impressed. They looked at my space and what I had built, and they're like, "You're cleaner than some of the farms we visit." But yeah, it's a whole different ball game. If they want me to, get it to a processor to get it into a different form, I'll usually, do the due diligence for them to get that done. I'm pretty nice for that. But my patients have been there from the beginning, and they've, stood by me and been super supportive. I would rather struggle and be owning my shit instead of, working hard and, leaving a farm after caring for it all day and, barely making a wage.
Do you think they're going to keep whittling away at? You can't keep operating, and you're just going to have to pay for a rec license.
I've spoken to many rec farmers, some that are super successful, some that aren't so successful, and I've, kind of heard their stories and their build. And it really is a really hard work running a rec farm. It's no slouch. I've worked at several rec farms. They're putting serious plants down, thousands of plants, thousands of clones, and it's just insane. And if you think about it, the amount of licenses that are issued here, and like, the extreme surplus Oregon's, facing right now with millions of pounds of usable cannabis, it's kind of ridiculous. But you know, we'll see where it goes. I don't know if they're gonna, be able to push any of their cannabis away or out. Um, I've really tried my best to keep my quality ahead of the game. I know that, the commercial grows, they produce a certain quality. It is good. And so that's just really what I'm, all about, just trying to get the plant to, demonstrate its full potential. Another thing I've tried to do in-house breeding to try to, steal away with, hype that isn't out there, or a flavor that isn't released to the public that no one can find type stuff. I think there's a niche for definitely the breeders out there. Try to stick true to that and just the best quality, clean as cannabis.
Noah, it looks like we have a question on YouTube for you. I believe this is directed at you.
Yep.
So exactly how did you start your business? Did you have to have certain certificates to do so?
They do have you apply. Being a medical farmer isn't a business, but once you apply for the metric, transfer out, you are going to be a business. They ask you on your applications when you're applying for a medical card. They say, will you be transferring out to processors or shops? And so you do need to state clearly as a patient filling out for your grower, like, what is intended with the cannabis that is produced. The OLCC and OHA, they're going to, ask you to pay all of these fees for, grow site, administration fees, tracking fees, purchase of, agricultural license scales, just to be compliant to even operate in their system.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
the other
insane.
question, did you already ask that every state have different limitations on per plant? Yes, every state, according to their medical laws, will have a different plant limit for cultivation.
Yep.
Okay, so skipping towards the end, Noah, what sort of ideas and concepts are you trying to promote for the future?
Really promoting a happy and healthy lifestyle. The cannabis industry has transitioned and been this tornado so fast because it's a $1 billion industry. I'm just trying to keep the dream alive. I've definitely had to switch up my usual deal. I'm trying to operate as an above board business, and so really come into the market with new strains, new genetics. I'm out here trying to find farms that can give me a good representation of my menu. So I'm giving them seeds to do trials with, and I've had some really good results. I'm pursuing extracts. I really enjoy solventless methods. I hold Equilect very close to my heart. Their dabs are the most flavorful dabs I've ever had. Pretty much. I'm still new at this. I'm just trying to keep my head above water at this point and make sure that I'm going to be doing everything that the state wants, so I don't see any penalties or disciplinary actions. And yeah, I really just want to develop my farm. I have an opportunity to work on expanding my brand here in the next year, and light depth season's already kind of began for me, and so I'm already at it every day, twice a day. I'm out there working, making sure everything is taken care of that is on the list that has to get done. But I really appreciate this opportunity to kind of come out here and talk. It's been a great journey. I've learned a lot from just this whole experience. Really got to owe it to my partner. She actually is what drove this whole project to blossom. Cannabis was going to be the direction that will be the safest, and so I dove in deep, put everything I had into this, and it's still tough, but right now it's a good point, and it's kind of starting to blossom, and everything's rolling really good for me. And yeah, I really got to say the support came from all the patients. If it wasn't for the patients, I wouldn't have done any of this.
Okay, so
Nice.
Will's got one more
Yeah.
question for Noah before we open it up for callers. If any callers want to call in, the number is 1-833-777-3227. That's 1-833-777-DABS.
Yeah. So yeah. No, I know you pop a lot of different seeds and do a little bit of breeding yourself. What you look for in ones that you're trying to breed yourself?
That's really very important part of a lot of the stuff I do. I feel like the plant and the medicine it provides is always different and developing all the different cannabinoids that have been researched that are coming out. You know, hybridization of strains is only going to strengthen that. And so, really, like what we were talking about earlier in the segment, uh, my season, my environment, where I live really dictates a lot of what I choose. I'm really looking for short season, mainly indica dominant strains, 7 week strains, because I'm scared of molds. There's $300 seed pack down the drain type stuff, but you learn and you find a breeder that you like, and you stay with them. Professor P, everything I've popped from him has literally been tried and true. I have nothing bad to say about any pack I've popped from him. A fanboy strain. It's going to be Super Silver Haze crossed to Granddaddy Purple, and that's been my life's work. I've like back crossed it 3 times now, and then I've also bred it to like a 20+ strain menu, and so I have created like my my future in a way, putting an investment into breeding so that I don't have to rely on clones or any outside
That's
uh
dope. I'm trying to get
yeah.
some 10 packs of those, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah,
Yeah.
we're definitely doing we definitely are doing tester packs for people who want to do the full interview process and understand more. We are doing tons of freebies. We gave out probably, I want to say, close to 50 or 60 seeds selections. What I thought was a good plant, what I thought was healthy, really pays off for me now. But being Papa Bear, I'm kind of stingy. I'm not just going to give you seeds.
Can we get you to plug all of your social media and your websites that you have anything going on?
We have the IG. This year being the year that we're a business, we're getting the websites up and running, the seed menus up and running. The IGs just began. It's going to be Salvation Farms and Dream Team Seeds. We're going to more content this year. This is kind of the year to develop swag, content, a brand. Make sure everybody knows like what we're all about. We're going to be hitting the shelves, and I want to make it look very unique, very one of a kind. I've seen what the whole market has thrown at it, and it's time to do better than what you see. Kind of
Yeah. Yes,
see
sir.
what you can throw at. You only live
So,
once. It's my motto. But yeah.
so anybody in Oregon who's looking around for seeds or product on the shelf, please ask about Salvation Farms or Dream Team Seeds.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome. This was so much fun.
It's that's our time slot that we have for Noah Bentley from Salvation Farms and Dream Team Seeds. We
Thank
thank
you,
him for
guys.
coming on the show.
Thank
Our
you,
next
man.
guest is Joshua Steensland. I think he's coming on the video stream shortly here. Thanks for coming on, Noah.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good rest of your night, bro.
You too, guys. Night.
Later, man.
Later. See if Joshua Steensland comes on here.
Noah's pretty dope. I mean, he's actually, I think, transferred right before we closed up shop for the renovation for Natural Wonders. We put a bit of his stuff out because he's in the metric system. So yeah, once the shop back opens back up, I think we'll probably be one of the first shops.
Okay, Joshua Steensland, are you there, sir? It's going good. I can hear you loud and clear.
Sweet.
Sounds good on that end too.
To start it out, I know your answers are going to be elaborate, so I'm excited to have you on the show. I'm a super big fan of your work and your methods. The first question I have is just, can you please introduce yourself, your company, state of operation, rec or medical, etc.?
Sure. I'm Joshua Steensland, and I own Steensland Consulting, and we are available for contract cultivation, complete control of cultivation services for facilities. And one of my main clients is Freshwater Farms in Oregon. They're an OLCC licensed facility. And things are going well. I've got some other projects in the works, and I just really can't speak on those right now. A lot of folks, if you've been following me, I've been in St. Croix, and so we got stuff going on, and I'm hoping that I'm able to share stuff. Yeah, yeah, right.
I'm like, damn, man, that boy's getting busy. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and consult with us.
Definitely.
Can you at least can you say which farm you're consulting for in Oregon? Like, it's going to be your work for the first year at least, right?
Yeah, that's Freshwater Farms.
Okay.
We're in the Portland area there.
Nice.
And where are you at? Are you in a different state?
I'm just a little drive away from that facility, but
nice,
so I
nice.
And I have my own little personal medical grow here that I've been doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the one on the IG feed too, right? You're on like your 11th or 12th cycle no-till indoor.
Yeah, I think we're getting ready to start our 10th, but I've had some pretty long breaks in between there. So the beds are getting on to 4 years old now. So
Wow.
they've been 4 years in the same soil. So and they're getting better and better.
Okay, so how long have you been in cultivation, Joshua Steensland?
Well, I started cultivating seriously when I got out of the Marines in 95. So it was probably about 90 really started to cultivate seriously. And at that point, there was no medical, nothing. So we were straight guerrilla style, um, false walls in the basement type stuff. And I think there's a picture on my IG feed from back in those days with the big like street lamp type sodium. So I've been growing pretty steady ever since then. He's learning something new every day.
Dope. So, can you please talk about your methods? Some of the people who are listening might not be as familiar with cannabis cultivation, like me and Will are. No-till indoor. Like, can you talk
Sure.
about that?
Yeah, I could break that down, no problem. It's a simple process. My process is the ultra minimalist. I think I'm even an outlier when it comes to the no-till kind of regenerative community. This minimalist role and water only method. And what I mean by that is once I have plants in my soil, all I ever introduce to the soil is water. That's it. No teas, no ferments, no top dresses, nothing, just water. And when I started to do this, it was because I wanted to document and prove the point that what's happening in the soil is what's driving 99% of what's happening above the soil. So and in doing so, I had to learn about what was happening in the soil instead of it being this big mystery. And so that's where no-till and regenerative agriculture comes in, because with the help of people like Dr. Elaine Ingham and Lowenfels and his teaming book series, cultivators that are taking microscopy courses and basically becoming self-taught microbiologists and learning what's going on in their soil, because that's really what's driving plant growth and everything. So there's this communication between healthy living soil and the plant. And when we're out of the way and allow that process to take place, or this multitude of processes take place, you end up with a highly refined product at the end that's you've achieved kind of maximum genetic potential and expression of that genetic potential, because you haven't done any shortcuts. You've just allowed the plant to interact with soil as it was designed.
Yeah, I try to explain that to homies too, that no-till that's an accurate representation of what the breeder's work was. Like, there's no turn up on phosphorus with the nutrients or any of that. I dig that a lot.
Yeah, it was a hard sell for me, because I used to own 2 brick and mortar hydroponic shops. I was a conventional. I mean, I've grown every kind of way. I've had a current culture system. I've done the highly oxygenated recirculating deep water culture. I've done it, and I've tried a lot of these things. And when I stumbled across this kind of living soil methodology, it was like this kind of epiphany happened. It was just like, wow, what have I been thinking the past 16 years? And I really just stripped away anything that I thought I knew about cultivating cannabis, and tackled this new living soil methodology with like I was learning something new for the first time. And of course you can't unlearn things about growing cannabis, but I really tried to strip away a lot of those old bad habits, the whole wet dry cycle with cocoa and whatnot. And to a conventional cultivator, that's madness.
Yeah, no doubt, dude. I saw you really campaigning for the blue mat system too before anybody else was with the carrots and all that. And I'm like, damn, man, that's dope.
Yeah, I saw the value. I noticed the value off those right away, and they were pretty well known in the living soil community already by the time I kind of jumped into the stream. But I really got vocal about the benefits of them, and I was really an honor to have Blue Mat kind of create a 4x8 and a 4x4 system based off my home grow, and has named it after me. They were like, I want the kit that I want the setup Josh Steensland has. And so they were just like, finally like, all right, I think we just need to put together a kit so when people call, I can just say, okay, yeah, cool. So I was really honored that my voice has been heard in such a fashion where it's actually affecting businesses. It's great. It feels good.
Yeah,
And
dude.
and cultivators are learning easier ways to take care of things. You shouldn't have to be
Yeah,
in your bed, in your room, watering every day. We have lives to live.
no doubt, dude.
That's awesome.
Same.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's my next question is, in switching to that method, what were some of the obstacles on the way to getting your room dialed? Like just talking on your medical grow, I guess, at home.
Really, the biggest hurdle was like my ego was, and it's gonna sound kind of weird, but it was like literally letting go of this kind of mad scientist mentality where you're mixing 7-part formulas and pHing your water, and
Yes.
watching this schedule very closely on when you get to change your nutrients and all this crap, and that's good, that's great if that's how you cultivate. And that a lot of people like that. They like to feel like they're participating in the cultivation of the cannabis, and it serves them in that way. And cultivators are in a large part very A-type personalities, and so that control factor is a hard thing to give up. When I learned that I didn't have to pH my water anymore in a living soil system, the beds pH it. The bacteria and the fungi, or the microbiome, the microlife in the beds, are responsible for pHing the water. So unless you're like way off the charts and poisonous water, a healthy microbiome in your soil will handle that. So you don't have to add anything to your water. So that was a big trick for me, like a big one. Like you're watching pH like crazy. You go from that kind of strict, rigorous control to like, well, whatever. I didn't even check my pH. I went to straight observation mode, to where I was just watching my plants and noticing my plants were looking beautiful. There was no sign of pH issues. So I was like, all right, fuck it. There's no problems. And so it was that stuff was the hardest hurdle. Some of the best product I ever grew is that first cycle in living soil. And when I didn't do anything, and I still kind of beat that drum now, 9 cycles later, going into my 10th cycle. Like, it's really hard to take credit because I'm walking through my room 10 or 15 minutes every other day, sometimes not for a week.
Damn.
I just don't spend time in there because the natural process is already happening, and it's happening without me.
And
And the more I'm in there mucking around with the process, that's more of a variable.
okay, so so integrated pest management with predator bugs and all that.
Yeah, we do use predators. I like to stick with predators. In the ideal situation, I'd like to do like a no spray IPM, where all of your pest management is handled by a diverse array of beneficial insects. Works really good for small cultivators or cultivators who are isolated or in a big complex where there's large growth. Calls to the pests from miles around.
Yeah.
They just know that all that cannabis is there, and so it's really hard to achieve and have success in a big commercial setting like that. So, we tend to do your average, 2 to 3 time a week IPM spraying during veg and early flower, and then we switch to a heavy beneficial IPM regimen. So whatever is recommended by, say, natural enemies or something, we'll tend to want to double that just to hedge our bets.
That's tight. Yeah. Going the extra mile.
Yeah, might as well, right?
Yeah, dude. I saw one of your IG posts where let some lizards loose in your room, dude. I was like, no
Oh yeah,
way. I'm like, that's
that was
tight.
back when I was really struggling with the roly polies or the woodlouse, and I was just like, man, they were just mowing down any seedlings or even like just freshly transplanted clones. If they were under like 4 inches, they would just annihilate them. Right? The temperature stays exactly the same. If you got your shit together, your environmental conditions are going to be spot on. And so it just so happens when you're running a room with a proper vapor pressure deficit and proper humidity and temperature that woodlouse or roly polies happen to just love. And those little suckers, they live up to 3 years a piece. 3 years. So you get one in your room, it's gonna reproduce and it'll be there 3 years later. It'll be dying, but it'll be that same roly poly that was there 3 years ago.
Damn.
So
Wow.
they can get out of hand crazy, and that's what happened with me. Is that I had just this huge bloom of roly polies, and I didn't know what to do. I refused to do any kind of take any toxic measures, So I just kind of like once again I got out of the way. And if anybody wants a really good book to read, it's I'm gonna mess up his first name, Manasubu Fukuoka. He wrote a book called The One Straw Revolution or A One Straw Revolution. And it is a really, really good book where he basically he encapsulates the ethos of regenerative and no-till agriculture. He was a former Japanese equivalent of Department of Agriculture worker who had this kind of epiphany, and he made really gentle corrections to how he cultivated based on what the land was telling him. And his whole thing was just let it grow, let it be in its natural state, and it will produce, everything you need. And so in that same kind of let it be vein, I just surrendered to the roly polies, and literally, this sounds kind of wooey, but this is the truth. Like within a couple months of me just being like, all right, I'm just going to learn to live with these guys. I chopped and dropped a lot of my cover crop and just gave them food to eat so they'd stay off my cannabis. And then I had a huge wave of garden spiders move in, and they were like everywhere. They were like, you couldn't walk through my room. I was breathing them in my nostrils. I had spiders everywhere in there. And I've got no more crazy spider blooms, but for about 4 or 5 months, you could not go in that room without like just spiders parachuting from everywhere. But nature's amazing. It will, if you just have patience, it will, and you just kind of provide the right environment, it'll balance itself out. It'll find balance. It's really good at that. That's how we're
That's
still planet.
yeah, man. That's dope, man.
Mm,
Like,
Yeah, that's
really,
awesome.
really principled leadership, man. I'm
right.
digging everything you're saying right now. So my next question. So I thought that freshwater farms was your thing, but I guess you're just consulting for them.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I mean, Mike is a great guy. He's the owner of Freshwater Farms. He's a really good dude. He's from Hawaii, and he came to me with with like a vision of wanting to do things right. He believed in the method and was like, look, I don't know anything about cultivating cannabis. I'll give you complete creative control. Just if just duplicate what you're doing at home here and let's do it, and so we just jumped in kind of with both feet to see it. I had set up another rec facility in Washington that I can't mention, but I wish I could, but I set one up previously, and that so that was a good experience for me moving forward. There was a really common misconception at first because we hit it really hard and people were confused who the owner was and what was happening with that. So hard to kind of send consulting firms only so that freshwater farms can kind of be outside of kind of my identity. If that makes
That's
any
cool.
sense.
Yeah. Well, no, it
Yeah.
does. Well, being in the cannabis industry, I fell in love with working for myself.
Hmm.
And it's like once it became so flooded in Oregon that I couldn't do that and couldn't get on the shelf anymore and still be compliant without getting the like it would just like I didn't have the capital to do all that, so I had to bail and um it bummed me out, but it's just man, it's the way things go. So
Yeah, man.
I think it's dope that you still kept your principles and you're still working for yourself and you're still balling out. You know what I mean? Like,
No, man. Well, I feel really fortunate. I feel lucky to, have just kind of stuck to my guns and come across some good people along the way who've believed in me, believed in the greater vision. Because I think this kind of a new paradigm shift in commercial cultivation is coming. It has to come. Like the 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 model that people have for large scale commercial work at scale when they realize what we can do, what we can produce, what our cost of goods produced is compared to a conventional cultivator is ridiculous. They're spending $1 million or more a year on soil that they're tossing or paying to go recycle or whatever they're doing with it, and having to replace it, or spending X amount on 55-gallon drums of nutrients that they don't need, and so it's the paradigm shift is coming, and we're starting to, now that we've been kind of vocal about freshwater farms and I've become more vocal, had a lot of speaking engagements, and it's exposed me to a lot of larger scale cultivators and investors who are really starting to, their ears are starting to perk up to this regenerative movement that's happening. And it's a better product in the end if it's done right. Your terpene expression is full and mature, and you've got, once again, you've got that complete expression of the genetic potential. And when you take a shortcut, or you um, use like a bud hardener or something of that nature, you're bypassing some kind of natural process, or more than likely a series of natural processes that are then going to detract from the potential. So and that's just simply from my observation. I grew conventionally for so long that I didn't take it lightly that the first crop I grew out of living soil, I made hash out of it and won the dope cup. I was like huge, like, okay, wait a minute, there's something here. Like, it was my first
yeah,
cycle. I had fungus gnats like crazy. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't really like. I wasn't a full believer yet, and it
yeah,
still knocked it out of the park.
that's
So
dope.
it's just proofs in the pudding.
Yeah, man, it is. Like that was my whole thing too when I was trying to solicit investors was look at my spreadsheet. I'm not asking for 1.2 million. I'm asking for 160 racks. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it was like everything's just a one-time thing. We only have to spend 5 a year after that. And they were just like,
Sure.
huh? And it's like, man, it just keeps going. We just reuse it. And they were like, huh? And shit happens and things don't go the way you want them to. I'm not sad anymore, but I really started following because of your methods, and it's like you were running what most people would do outdoors under some lights in a room as an
Right.
indoor cannabis, and I was just like, God damn, that's tight. You know what I mean? Like, because I just didn't really see anybody else anywhere doing that same thing. So I was
Yeah,
like, man,
there was some small pockets. I mean, I have to give credit to Mountain Organics. So I got us talking about Mountain Organics. Like, he's the guy who's been doing it the longest, as far as I know, and people like Clackamas Coot, Jeremy from Build a Soil. A lot of these guys were on the living soil train before I hopped on. and Green Life Productions in Vegas. They actually started their Vegas facility at the same time I started my living soil operation at home. So I feel like this kind of kindred spirit with him because I got to watch his commercial operation grow and develop while my medical one was growing, and now I'm kind of doing commercial stuff. So I kind of look up to those guys. So there's definitely OGs out there that I look up to, and
Cool.
you
Way to
know,
pay homage, bro. Way to pay homage.
yeah, well,
Yeah, I
that's
was
the
say I've heard of Green Life Productions. I think they have what, 2 facilities now in Las Vegas.
we all think of ourselves as brothers, kind of in this regenerative community, and so there's really not a lot of this competitive vibe or anything. Everybody wants to see each other do well, and so I
Absolutely.
really like those guys and look up to them, and I'm proud to follow in their footsteps.
Totally. That's awesome. I know that and you might have touched on this earlier, but that sometimes building a no-till takes, a couple years, or sometimes you have a few, more of nutrients than others needed, as sometimes things are a little bit hot. Did you encounter any problems when you first started your soil base? Did you have to like readjust anything, or?
No, and I think that if you properly build your soil, you won't be hot. And so
Yeah.
there's a few recipes out there. There's a Clackamas Coot recipe that's really popular. And then you can also buy from a number of places across the country pre-mixed no-till, like kind of water only blends. And there's one from Keep It Simple, and that's just, you can't go wrong with them. Um, so if you follow these kind of standard recipes and you're not doing like I'm not shitting on the guy, but the Subcool super soil recipe, that's
Mhm.
really hot. That's hot. That will
Oh
It
yeah,
burn
yeah,
the
is.
shit,
definitely.
right? So
Yeah.
that, I wouldn't suggest that mix, per se. There's a lot of stuff in there that
Right.
makes it too hot. There's a great Clackamas Coot soil recipe. If you follow that, you will not burn your plants. You can't burn your plants.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and then getting a deeper understanding of how the soil food web works, you really you get relaxed and you realize that there's really not, as long as you're not dumping any kind of water soluble plant ready nutrient into your soil, there is no capacity for the plant to overfeed itself. It's just not wired into it. There is no burning
Right.
that takes place in nature unless you're talking about like anaerobic soil or a compost or something. Then you might get some kind of weird toxicity issue. But overload is solely a synthetic or kind of plant soluble nutrient issue. So if you're cultivating in living soil beds, and you can't get that kind of weird nutrient burn issue unless you've mixed your soil wrong.
Totally.
No doubt. I used to put too much bat guano in my compost tea the first year I made soil. Um, it fucking burned the shit out of my Obama plants, and
Yeah.
Oh
I,
yeah,
I had to
yeah.
a little
I'm
bit.
I'm not a fan of activated compost tea for the most part, and that's simply because for that reason. I mean, I'm not saying I hate it. I think it's a really beneficial tool. You have to have your tea recipe has to be on point, and at the very least, and at the most, you need getting in there and looking at what you're actually brewing, and applying to
Yeah.
your garden goes a long way at making sure you're doing safe. I learned a really cool thing from the guy from Malibu Compost, and I feel like an a-hole because I don't remember his name, but he talks about a really safe way to introduce the beneficial microbes from compost or earthworm castings, is to do, what was he calling, like a compost extract. So you basically just fill like a cheese, or like a cheesecloth or like a nut milk bag full of your compost or your earthworm castings, and then just stick a hose in there and let hose water pass through it, or just take like a cup and put it in a cup of compost and put it into a 5-gallon bucket of clean water, stir it up and let it sit there for a couple hours, then drain out the liquid and use that. It's impossible to burn your shit. it will introduce a big inoculation of beneficial microbes, provided you are using a good quality starting material. And you run very little risk, no risk of it being anaerobic, unless the material you started with smelled like shit and was
Yeah.
anaerobic, right?
Yeah,
So,
dude. I've
good
done
in,
that
good out. But
before too,
yeah,
man. When
totally.
it
So
smells all
that
sour, I'm like, fuck, man,
yeah, man,
it's not
no
supposed
good.
to be like this.
Yeah, it's got to smell good. So that
Yeah.
extract, that compost extract's a really good way to get around misbrewing adventures.
No doubt.
Definitely.
No
Yeah, I remember seeing that product at the grocery store, the one single use like compost bags that you could like you said, hose water through or just steep in a bit of water for a bit and very useful tools.
Yeah, he's a big proponent of it, and I happen to agree with him. I think it's probably the safest way. I'm a big guy at reducing variables, and I don't have a microscope at home, and I haven't acquired that skill just yet. So until I have that skill, I'm going to take precautions that provide me the least variables as possible, because something's always going to come up.
What is on your agenda for this year as far as goals in the industry? I know
Mm.
you're doing a lot of consulting work. Some you can talk about, some you can't. Um,
Yeah. I
are
mean,
you are you are you going to enter any competitions or anything where people can check for you?
I don't think so. No competitions in just yet. We've been talking about putting on like an indoor versus outdoor cup, just kind of tongue in cheek, because we know that they're completely different, but we just want to kind of cater to that kind of natural uh rivalry, and so we've
Yeah,
been talking about putting together a good-hearted, you know
thorough
like
test, like
rumble in
terpene
rumble in the
test,
yeah, rumble in the
everything.
Bronx. So we've been talking about that, and I'm working on wanting to get my cultivation manual done. I'm working on it, so I'm probably about 25% done. Trying to trying to punch in an hour or two a day.
You're going to make a book?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it a book, but probably about 120-page cultivation manual based specifically on my kind of minimalist approach. And yeah, I've been working on it for a little bit, and I've kind of committed myself to spending several hours a day on it until I knock it out, because the interest has been really high. I probably have about 100 people who've reached out since I mentioned it last spring before I took the job at Freshwater.
Call it 101. Like, I will buy that book, bro. Like,
Yeah, it's
serious.
coming.
What sort of ideas and concepts are you trying to promote in the future?
Oh, biodynamic cultivation for sure. That's that's something that's really piqued my interest in the past year, 6 months to a year. If you're not familiar with it, look into biodynamics. It's almost like thinking of treating your property homeopathically, with really small micro doses of concentrated microbes or minerals, and so there's some really interesting. Some of it's a little out there, but when you dig into kind of um, the meaning behind it, it makes a lot of sense. And I would really like to emulate that indoors to some degree, like have property off-site where we produce our own compost, have our own kind of ruminant animals. Biodynamics is really exciting to me right now.
Tight, tight. So, I'm gonna open it up to callers. If anybody is listening, the number to call in is 1-833-777-DABS. That's 1-833-777-3227. If you can plug your social media and everything too, Josh, now
Sure.
would be the time to do that. We're not limited on time because you're our last guest. So anything else you want to talk about after you plug your social media, please plug your social media and website for your consulting and personal IG.
Yeah, sure. So my personal IG is just my name, at Joshua Steensland. And then my business IG is Steensland Consulting. Should be really easy to find just on either of those. And then my YouTube channel is Joshua Steensland as well. I tried to make it really easy. Lots of folks have handles, IG handles these days, and I'd like to just keep one name.
Way to go, bro. Way to go. Yeah. We're trying to be concerned
Funny.
devs podcast on everything too. Snapchat makes you shorten your name though. So concerned
Totally.
devs on Snap.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to add after this interview, dude? Like we're gonna try and promote it as much as we can.
But yeah,
And
I'll be speaking at the Cultivation Classic in May, I think it's the 18th. I'll be speaking there. So if anybody who's listening or is going to be in Oregon and going to the Cultivation Classic, I'll be there 17th and the 18th.
awesome. And then do you have like a regular schedule for your YouTube channel where you're broadcasting live?
No, and I'll be honest, I've kind of let the YouTube content decline. I lost interest when they went through and did their big purge. I haven't been posting there a lot, and I think we're gonna pivot. I'm thinking about pivoting to just talking about organic cultivation in general and walking through what the things that we're going to be doing in my garden in my yard. So we've got like a hugelkultur mounds out there that me and the kids put together last year. I've got a compost pile. So we're talking about like just pivoting and away from cannabis and just focusing on that kind of organic cultivation and then just peppering it with cannabis stuff. But I really feel like the bulk of what I've done on YouTube is just kind of there already, and people can go to my No Till Talk series. And still got people commenting on the first one. It was about 3 years ago, I think I did those, and so they're still getting exposure, and people are still learning stuff from them. So as long as they're still valid, I'm just kind of let sleeping dogs lie. So I'll just leave that as a kind of perpetual resource for folks.
No doubt, dude. Well, I'm definitely gonna tune into that channel and watch some of those videos. Appreciate everything you're doing. We appreciate having you on the show, man. Like,
No, thanks a lot. No, I enjoy talking about it, and I'm trying to turn on as many folks to this more natural way of doing things. This isn't just cannabis. Like this, you're learning a skill that translates over into whatever you want to cultivate. So, our first year of doing living soil tomatoes, we got probably got 150 pounds, 200 pounds of cherry tomatoes. This is ridiculous out of my backyard. I mean, we
damn.
just I had to buy a freezer,
Also,
it was
that's
nuts.
awesome.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was
That's
nuts,
awesome.
man. Yeah. So
Cool. That pretty much concludes the questions I have. Thanks for coming on, Joshua Steensland. That wraps up our second episode for Cultivation. Yeah, have a good rest of your night,
Yeah.
bro. Like, thanks a lot for coming on the show, and
Appreciate it, man.
hey, dude, no worries at all, man. It was my pleasure. And as we progress, dude, just hit me up, and if I got time, I'll jump on anytime.
Okay, cool. We're gonna hit you up for maybe the solventless extraction because we know you're a big rosin guy too with your personal garden.
Yeah, hit me up. If we can make it happen, we'll do it.
Okay, cool, man. Have a good rest of your night, bro.
All right, you guys
All
too.
right,
Thank
later,
you.
man.
Later.
Cheers.